we've got this issue here that we got to remedy. That is how they ran the light in the closet. So basically they just stuffed it behind the baseboard. They ran it down and stuffed it around behind the baseboard, and they came up over in the wall here, put a switch, and then went up the wall, cut out, just drilled a hole out and snaked a extension cord down through. It's wire nutted together with tape there, and then just drilled in, goes into the side of the light there. So that, of course, does not meet code and is a safety hazard. The guy who owned this house, he lived here for a while. He didn't do this, the previous owner did, but he lived here for a while and he just dealt with it because it was him. And you are, the way that most code enforcement and legal purposes go is if you're risking your own life and your family's life, that's on you. But if a tenant was to be in here and get hurt by this, then it would be the homeowner's liability, not the tenant. So definitely he wants to remedy this issue. As long as it never gets hit, there's not really ever going to be an issue with it, not really a problem. But the problem is it is way too easy for someone to hit, someone to nick, and something like that. And that's why the wiring should be inside the wall. If it's exposed, it should be in either conduit or metallic cabling, which is MC is a short name for it. It's basically like a coiled metal coiling. So with it not being protected, this definitely needs to be fixed so that a tenant doesn't get hurt. So I'm gonna have to turn the electricity off, open this up, remove the box, and try and get a wire down into the crawl space, which I can access through that hole that we made in the bathroom, drill up, come into this switch box, and then I'm not sure what I'm gonna do when I go up. We'll have to deal with that when we get to it. That is, does not meet code at all as far as the amount of wire you're supposed to have to be able to do this inside the box. I can barely get this outlet out from in there. So we can see it's wide open there, but I tried to slide the wire down and I couldn't get it in. It's because there is a bottom plate actually here. So with that being the case, we are going to have to drill from underneath. To mark that, I guess what we'll do, we're going to go ahead and just slide this down here. That basically is just marking for me. It's right next to that box. So it'll tell me when I'm underneath, I can just locate this and that will let me know where I need to drill. I just need to drill just to this side of that. So, and then I'll use that reference point as well. I'll measure from there over to where the switch is, and then from the wall this way to be able to find the center of that wall. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and open up that box there and then do that, do those measurements real quick, and that'll let me know what I need underneath.
Alright, so locating this was not easy down here. So, there's a lot of stuff down here I had to try and maneuver around and get under here to begin with. And then on top of that, you get this beam here in the way. But there was, right underneath here, there was enough access I could crawl under to the old part of the house. I located it. I could also see where this wall comes down through the closet. So then I pulled the insulation out and the paper. You can actually see where they nailed the bottom plate down. At least I know where it is. The wall is located. And I can measure. So right about here is where I need to go up. And I need to be from there about here. So make a mark and then recheck this. Yeah, right. Because you don't want to come up in the floor. In this case, because they're putting LVP in after we're done, it wouldn't be that big a deal. We could just patch the hole. But it's still best to keep the practice of how to locate stuff from below so that you don't hit anything above. They have carpet going underneath that wall, which doesn't help. Come on now. I think I'm through. Yep. Right about there should be close to the height of that box up there. So we'll leave it there for now so I can grab it and pull it out.
All right, so now takes you just gotta make sure you do some good measurements, and then it's not that hard to do that. But it makes it a whole lot easier if you can manage to locate the exact spot. So what I'm going to do to hopefully make it easy to do this, I'm just stripping it back roughly about 5 to 6 inches. I'm going to cut all of the wires except the ground. This has a hole in it. You can put it through. If you're going to be going through a lot of difficult areas and pulling really hard, you will probably want to tape this up really good. For what I'm doing here, it's a pretty straight, easy, straightforward pull. so I'm not worried about that much tension being on it. It should be good as long as I make sure I have plenty spooled off here. And I'm using 12-3, it's just because that's what I have. So basically this has a black, red, white, and a ground bare wire. But I'm going to be just cutting the red off and not using it. I just am not going to need it that way. So now, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go underneath. And I'm not going to take y'all down there because it is a real pain down there. I actually broke my tripod when I was on my way back out of that hole because of, I guess, just the pain. So I'm going to have to, unfortunately, get another tripod. But so with that being the case, I'm not going to take y'all down there. But all I'm going to do is I'm going to go down where you saw it had that hole. I'm going to pull it down. I'm going to go over there and I'm going to drill up through the bottom plate just to this side of that green glow rod, or depending, I may be able to find the hole that wire comes up through and send it through there. I'll just see what I find over there, but again, I'm going to do that without y'all coming with me, and then I'll send the wire up through that hole and the rest will be done from up here. So I'll be back in a moment. All right, so now I got the wire up. Since we weren't able to run it downward, then we are going to have to take this box out. And since we have to take the box out, and I'm going to have to mess with this wire that they didn't leave any of to work with, I am going to lower the box so that we have what is required by code and patch the top. I'm just cutting the paint around the box so that it doesn't mess up the wall, hopefully too much. That stud's not even nailed down. Or piece of wood, whatever. If it's not actually a stud, I don't know, but the whole thing moved when I did that. Trying to get the wires out of the box. When I'm doing the patch, I'll fix this that was weakened previously, and then when I try to do that, I finished it. So anyways, this is high for a regular receptacle in a house anyways, so definitely won't hurt to lower it. So I guess now I got to get out my keyhole saw and all that. That will be much better to work with. This one will still be a little bit technically just a hair short, but yeah, it'll probably be just barely long enough to meet code. But that means it's a hair short for what I prefer, but we'll just have to deal with it. One thing you want to do that helps with just making doing this stuff a lot easier is don't go buy the smallest, cheapest box. So what I mean by that is, so what they had in here was just the standard 16 cubic inch box, which did meet code for their just 2 wires and a device, but it's not that much more to buy the 22 cubic, which is what I always buy unless I'm dealing with like a shallow wall or like some shallow location, and then I'll use the smaller boxes. But it just, like I say, it just makes it so much easier if you give yourself that extra room to work with. No need to make stuff harder on yourself. All right, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this red off way back in the box. Because again, we don't need it. I was just bringing it because it's what I had sitting in my truck. Dealing with these older wires, they can be stiff, really stiff. If you cut off the red on one side, make sure you cut it off on the other, because you don't want it to ever end up getting tied in by somebody later on and them thinking that it's supposed to be something. All right, so anyways, these older wires are much stiffer than the new wire. And so with that, a lot of times when I'm dealing with the older wire, I will use a pair of lineman's pliers to get them twisted together really good underneath before I put the wiring in. I'm going to cut off right where the damaged part is on the old wire. And then I always start from the back when I'm pressing the wires in and try and get it a nice clean bend as far back in there as possible, because I want to have as much room later on as I can. So try and get that bend nice and clean way back, then you can get your wires back farther. Stripping back roughly about 1 inch to 1.25 inches. And then I will make my bend about 2.5 inches. That gets it out of the way of the wire nut. Plenty of extra to curl with the other wires to create a more solid connection. It'll help keep it from being able to be backed out of the wire nut at any point much easier. If you do it right at the wire nut, it's much easier for that to end up unraveling itself.
All right, so like I say, so you can see where it's like going straight, coming straight out. I'm going to, right at that point where it's coming out, that's where I'm going to make my bend. And then when it gets to the top, like it would be at the top, I'm going to bend it the other way. So basically making like a S, almost like an accordion. And then I'm going to push all of that back in there, make it nice and flat. And on the ground, you might notice I use the front of the pliers. That's because it is bare, so, and you're not really gonna hurt it. But with the hots and the neutrals, I will use the back side where the rubber is. Sometimes I'll use my hammer. So that gives a little more room bending it like that. And basically whenever I put the receptacle in, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to make up the receptacle, and then you can see where it's coming, all the wires are kind of at the top. I'm going to bend those down. At that point, I'm going to bend them up. And then when it would get to the top, I'm going to bend it down again. So I'm going to basically just create that little accordion style. Also, I guess just so that you know, when you do pigtails like this, there is not actually a code specifying how long the pigtail needs to be. However, I'm going to, of course, make it plenty long enough because I hate having to deal with what we were just dealing with the old receptacle, where you can't really get to it and make it up. So. And when I'm pushing the wires back in, usually because the ground is at the bottom, I'm going to bend that the opposite. So like I'll bend that down, bend the hots up, just whatever works really easily. So that's at the bottom. Of course, you can't push it in, but at that point, bend it up and in, and make sure that that ground is going to be straight in. You want it to go straight in as you push it, and be plenty far enough back that it's not going to ever hit these screws. So even though this box is tight with 3 number 12 twos in it, 3 12 twos in it, and a receptacle, it's still, because of the way that I formed everything, there is plenty of room for this device. There's room for a dimmer switch or a GFI. But the main thing is make sure that ground is faced in such a way that you're not going to have to deal with that. So where they had the original light was not centered of the closet. So in doing this, you're going to need to make enough room
to basically get the drill in. So essentially I need to cut down to here to get the drill in to build a drill up. I'm going to try and aim it that way. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. There's insulation in the way, so that may just make it curl up. So usually I'll send a lot more up when I'm trying to do this than I need. And then do like a S-kink, like this, and let it set down on that. That'll help hold it up there while you try to feel around and grab a hold of it through the hole. Another reason for having all that extra is sometimes, depending on where it went, you can't feel it. But as you slowly pull it down, like I was doing, you can feel the vibration in the insulation, and that can guide you to where it is. This box is not rated for a heavy light fixture. So make sure you don't use it for a chandelier or a fan, especially. But it is, I think it's rated for a fixture up to 25 pounds. And a closet light is usually going to be 5 pounds or less, if it even weighs 5 pounds. A lot of them these days, they're all plastic and LED. Now, I'm going to try to cut it and send it down the wall. What I don't know, I might have to send a glow rod up because of that piece of wood they've got in there. I'm going to try to get it past it, but it might not work. It worked. I got it down there, so. Don't know if you can see it. I don't think you can, but. Now, just gotta make this switch up.